The reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit this last week.
Whoopi Goldberg just hit her breaking point, and it happened live with the entire world watching. And no, it wasn't heat stroke. It was Charlie Kirk dropping verbal bombshells like he mistook The View for a no-holds-barred truth slam. 1 minute, Whoopi was coasting on confidence. The next, she looked like she'd seen a ghost, one wearing a Turning Point USA hoodie. So what did Charlie say that had Whoopi blinking like someone yanked the teleprompter cord mid-sentence? Buckle up, because this wasn't a debate. It was a demolition. The on-air unraveling had more heat than a Real Housewives reunion hosted by Ben Shapiro in a lace front wig. It was daytime drama, unplugged and unfiltered.
Kirk maintains that Turning Point USA is not affiliated with Nazis, anti-Semitism, or white supremacist. In a strongly worded tweet, the 28-year-old stated, "Talking to lawyers, many think we have a strong case. You cannot smear minors as Nazis and get away with it. It impacts them for the rest of their life. Hashtag sue the View."
Whoopi, oh, she knows she runs a room. The self-anointed queen of daytime discourse holds court from her velvet perch, tossing out opinions like royal decrees. With that signature, I'm never wrong energy strong enough to power all 5 boroughs. She's been untouchable, wrapped in layers of clapping co-hosts, cushy applause, and bulletproof monologues. Her kingdom? A TV set. Her crown? Absolute confidence. And for a long time, no one dared challenge the throne. Until today. Because today, that invincible bubble burst, loud enough to make the algorithm flinch. Enter Charlie Kirk. Not exactly the name you'd expect to rattle the Queen's cage, but here he comes from out of left field, armed with mic, a digital mountain of receipts, and a kind of swagger you only get from binge-watching your own takedowns. No red carpet, no studio lights, just fire and facts from his podcast bunker. Did he appear on The View? Not even close. He didn't need to. He hit record, dropped his rebuttal like a bomb, took a sip of coffee, and let the digital dust storm do the rest. What lit the fuse? A smug Whoopi soundbite, sugar-coated with studio laughter, nods, and the usual manufactured cheer. But Kirk caught the slip, that one-off note buried in Whoopi's usual gospel, hiding in plain sight, just waiting for someone to call it out. And he did. He zoomed in, dissected it like a surgeon, and laid it bare for the world. No shouting, no theatrics, just razor-sharp critique delivered with cold precision. This wasn't a meltdown. This was a masterclass in a modern clap act, calm, calculated, and deadly effective. Charlie Kirk didn't come to debate. He came to flip the script, and Whoopi never saw it coming.
Well, fast forward to this morning. The host apologized before quickly cutting to commercial. Watch.
Welcome back. You know, in Monday's conversation about Turning Point USA, I put the young people at the conference in the same category as the protesters outside. And I don't like it when people make assumptions about me. And it's not any better when I make assumptions about other people, which I did. So, my bad. I'm sorry.
First came the surgical strike. Charlie Kirk didn't just clap back. He dismantled Whoopi's argument with the kind of precision usually reserved for elite-level debaters and courtroom closers. No shouting, no drama, just cold, methodical analysis that made media skeptics everywhere feel like their moment had finally arrived. He did what people had been begging for someone to do. He checked the receipts. Calmly, ruthlessly, and without flinching. And those receipts? He didn't just flash them. He wielded them like a katana, slicing straight through the flimsy scaffolding of Whoopi's claims. This wasn't a rebuttal. It was a step-by-step breakdown, an assembly manual of contradictions, laid out piece by piece, pegs, screws, and even confusing extra parts, just to prove he'd done the full audit. He delivered it all with the calm confidence of a man who knew his mic drop moment was about to go viral before the waiter even brought the check. The facts didn't just challenge Whoopi's take. They moonwalked over it like a championship dance-off. Her polished soundbite got spun, clipped, flipped, and fed into the meme machine. Instagram lit up. TikTok stitched it to infinity. YouTube Shorts went wild, and Reddit? A full-blown frenzy. Digital detectives dissected her greatest hits like they'd found a lost season of cable news bloopers.
Monday, we talked about the fact that there were openly neo-Nazi demonstrators outside the Florida Student Action Summit of the Turning Point USA group. We want to make clear that these demonstrators were gathered outside the event and that they were not invited or endorsed by Turning Point USA. A Turning Point USA spokesman said the group quote, 100% condemns those ideologies, and said Turning Point USA security tried to remove the neo-Nazis from the area but could not because they were on public property. Also, Turning Point USA wanted us to clarify that this was a Turning Point USA summit and not a Republican Party event.
Even people who hadn't thought about The View since Obama's first term suddenly had loud opinions, because Charlie Kirk pulled back the curtain, and behind it, just a teetering stack of smug sound bites with zero structural integrity. The aftermath? Absolute chef's kiss. Then came the questions, and not the soft, couch-friendly kind. These were live wires. Wait, did she seriously just make that up? How did that even get applause? That's when his began. The slow, unmistakable leak deflating the glossy daytime TV balloon that had floated untouched for years. Here's the twist. Whoopi didn't get roasted in some flashy, live studio showdown. She got digitally dismantled by a guy who never even stepped on set. Her once cozy stage, buffered by cue cards and clapping co-hosts, suddenly felt exposed. You could hear it in the nervous laughter, the silences that stretched just a little too long, the jokes that fizzled like flat soda. Something had shifted. Whoopi was still in the chair, same cadence, same head tilt, but the spark had dimmed. That firebrand energy had cooled to a flicker. Her rhythm felt like reruns of old magic, and her eyes? They were scanning the crowd, searching for a sign. We're still good, right?
Her disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right. Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom.
Because here's the thing. It was never just about Charlie's words. It was about the shift he sparked. He exposed something bigger. You don't need studio lights, a glam squad, or a tag team of co-hosts to call out the absurd. All you need is a camera, a Wi-Fi connection, and the guts to say out loud what millions have been whispering for years. No yelling, no theatrics, just facts. Delivered so cleanly, they shattered the illusion like glass under a spotlight. Once those cracks appear, there's no hiding them. Charlie didn't come in hot. He came in cold, calm, and clinical, the kind of quiet that cuts deeper than any rant. He didn't speak like someone in a fight. He spoke like someone reading the ending of a story he'd already finished. While Whoopi leaned on claps, cues, and glossy transitions, Charlie brought none of that, just raw, relentless logic. It wasn't loud. It was lethal, like a cat slowly pushing a glass off the edge of a counter, eyes locked the whole time. No rush, no hesitation, just pure, deliberate savagery. And the wild part? It hit hard. The internet caught the scent of something real, something off, and went full bloodhound. Charlie's calm dismantling started circulating like classified intel. YouTubers lit up with thumbnails screaming, "Did Charlie just end The View?" TikTok turned it into an anthem. Twitter threads unraveled with receipts. Even the casual crowd started noticing. The repetition, the shallow hot takes, and that worn-out moral high ground routine that used to breeze by on charm alone.
The group sent a scathing cease and desist letter after hosts on The View suggested that Turning Point had embraced neo-Nazis who showed up outside the event.
Let them in.
President, open your
You let them in and you knew what they were.
Right.
So you are complicit.
But let's be clear, Whoopi didn't fold. She didn't cry. She didn't walk off set. She stayed in her chair and kept talking. But the vibe? Way off. Tangibly off. This was a meltdown you clip for daytime drama. It was slower, quieter, like watching a fire burn out in real time. Each hot take landed with thud, not applause, just silence. You know it's bad when a would-be mic drop is followed by a cough. No chuckles, no claps, just dead air and a blank stare aimed somewhere off camera, like she was scanning for backup that never came. That's the sting of losing the crown, not with a headline, but with a hush. Nobody announces it. You just look around and realize the crowd isn't there anymore. Even the producers felt it. The firebrand segments cooled to lukewarm. The rants got shorter. The punchline safer. Everything started sounding like it had been triple-checked against a memo titled Asterisk. Let's not go viral again. At least not like that. Asterisk. And that's where Charlie's move landed its brilliance. He didn't storm the stage. He didn't have to. He just quietly siphoned the oxygen out of the room. No clash, no chaos, just one-sided exposure, carried out with sniper precision and the sleight of hand calm of a magician pulling the rug out mid-sentence. He didn't argue, he revealed, and that hit deeper than any shouting match ever could. Because for once, it wasn't about Charlie. It was about what he said, something millions have felt but never seen so clearly. Maybe all that daytime polish was just gloss over a hollow script. And when the shine faded, all that was left was the echo of applause that never came.
I want to make a quick clarification about the neo-Nazis at the Turning Point event. They were outside protesters. My point was more metaphorical, that you embraced them at your thing, I felt.
This wasn't about politics. It wasn't red versus blue. It was raw, unfiltered logic going toe-to-toe with overproduced fluff. And the second that logic hit the feed, with nothing more than a solid Wi-Fi connection, viewers snapped awake. They realized they'd been applauding clever one-liners that crumbled the moment you Googled them. The loudest part of it all wasn't the fiery debates or the crowd cheering. It was the silence, not just from Whoopi, but from the whole machine that used to rush to her defense without hesitation. This time, nothing. No spin. No rebuttal. Just a freeze frame that spoke louder than words. Because, honestly, what could they even say? The facts were right there. Logic locked and loaded. Any attempt at a comeback would have been like tossing gas on a fire already raging. So what did they do? Exactly what big media always does when the heat gets uncomfortable. They blinked and rolled on. But the internet doesn't forget. It doesn't hit next just because the network does. Weeks passed, topics shifted, but that clip, still circulating, still reposted, still cutting deep. It turned into a digital receipt for the exact moment the mask slipped, when Whoopi's untouchable presence took a clean, quiet hit. No explosion, just a slice so sharp it left no blood, only an echo. And Charlie, he didn't linger, didn't brag, didn't even stick around for the fallout. He walked off like a man who demolished a building and didn't bother to check the rubble. That's how modern takedowns work. They don't shout. They drop the match and let the internet do the rest. One clip, one irrefutable point. And suddenly, you're not fighting a person. You're fighting a meme wave, a viral tide, a swarm of stitches and receipts that never stop coming.
Sean, something that struck me in the cease and desist letter was the sentence that specifically the View host insidiously and cavalierly stated that TPUSA let the neo-Nazis into its event, metaphorically embraced them, and it went on. Insidiously and cavalierly. And I felt that perfectly summed up exactly what those women were saying, which is something so deeply toxic and also so lightly thrown out there.
And so false. I mean, these were protesters outside of the event, right? They couldn't get in. These were not neo-Nazis inside of Turning Point USA. They were protesting outside on public grounds, and Turning Point tried to remove them.
Whoopi, with all the poise, the stage presence, the showbiz swagger, didn't just face off with Charlie. She collided headfirst with the one force no celebrity can outtalk, outshine, or outspin, a timeline that keeps the receipts. No shouting, no fireworks, just that cold, creeping realization that, no matter how loud you speak, the truth speaks louder. This wasn't just another spicy clip for the algorithm. It was a shift, a jolt, the kind of cultural wake-up call that whispered, your live, love persona isn't profound. It's just painfully cringe. This wasn't noise. This was impact, measured, lasting, and unignorable. Charlie Kirk, armed with nothing but Wi-Fi and the steady calm of a man with way too many PowerPoint slides, did what countless viral meltdowns, blue-check battles, and dramatic walkouts couldn't. He pierced the illusion, the idea that shows like The View were sacred, unshakable truth temples. Gone in an instant. Let's be honest. Daytime TV had been coasting, pretending it held a patent on common sense, backed by glitter sets, choreographed outrage, and applause buttons more obedient than a golden retriever in a vest. Hosts could toss out logic light takes and still be cheered like they'd reinvented peace on earth. Truth didn't matter. Volume did. Then Charlie slid in. No invite, no fireworks, no gimmick, just him, a camera, and enough unfiltered clarity to break the fourth wall, like it was made of clearance rack plexiglass.
I don't want to say too much, but we're going to have a lot of fun at the Department of Education. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Can I tell you something? Like, I've had quite a few people contact me about that particular post. Like, I'm sure I have 1/100th of what you're getting, but people are contacting me about cabinet posts. I'm like, I got nothing.
I mean, I'm actually, after this conversation, heading to Mar-a-Lago for a week. and we have a lot to sift through. And if I could be helpful, I have asked. I want to be actively involved in all things education, as you can imagine.
And here's the real twist. It wasn't even what Charlie Kirk said. It was how he said it. Calm, clean, data stacked like CVS receipts. No dramatic music, no flashy edits. Just cold, hard facts. The kind of clarity that doesn't need fanfare. Because when the truth is real, it doesn't have to shout. It just lands and leaves a mark. Charlie didn't show up angry. He showed up prepared. While The View spun in its usual cyclone of opinions and applause cues, he simply pointed at the chaos and said, here's the contradiction. Here's the actual data. Here's why this doesn't add up. It was like watching someone patiently untangle a gold chain while the other person yells, it's a noose. The vibe wasn't fury. It was disappointment. And that cuts deeper than any scream ever could. Suddenly, Whoopi, the longtime queen of midday commentary, didn't look untouchable. She didn't even look controversial. She looked human, flawed, like someone who hadn't been fact-checked in a very long time. And it didn't take a rival on set to do it. Just one guy in a hoodie armed with a pie chart, quietly crashing the shouting match. That was a twist. The moment a high-budget segment gets dismantled by a YouTuber in casual clothes, that's when the Matrix glitches. That's when you realize the Emperor's wardrobe wasn't royal. It was thrifted from a BuzzFeed quiz. What made it even more iconic? Whoopi wasn't even there. No cameras on her face. No fiery crosstalk. Charlie dropped his truth from an entirely different universe. And somehow, the shockwave still hit. No gloves. No ring. Just facts, delivered with surgical chill. And the next day, that studio chair creaked a little louder. Not because she was rattled, but because the illusion cracked. She didn't get wrecked in a live debate. She got eclipsed by a monologue she never saw coming, in a timeline where Google searches exposed more than zingers ever could. And that's the real plot twist. Whoopi didn't have to prove it. The internet didn't wait for her permission. That's how echo chambers collapse. Not with a bang, but with a browser tab and a little curiosity from the outside.
Do you think if a liberal came to speak at University of Kentucky, they'd give an open mic like I just did to a conservative and had a discussion like this? No, they wouldn't. Because speech is not a left-wing value. That's why Chuck Schumer went on the Senate floor and called for the censorship of a cable television program. I think it's rather clear there's one side that is trying to do everything they can to shut one side up, and one side that's trying to open up the marketplace of ideas.
Suddenly, The View wasn't just a talk show. It became a case study. Viewers weren't just clapping anymore. They were dissecting, replaying, analyzing like digital detectives with a mission. And when the truth landed, there were no fireworks, no shouting matches, just a quiet roast, powered by Wi-Fi, memes, and a mountain of contradictions. That's the real power of silent takedown. No stage, no mic drop, just one clean fact dropped in the timeline like a pebble. Then boom, the applause machine starts to wobble, not from volume, but from the weight of truth pressing down on a tower built from recycled talking points. Now the question isn't if Whoopi will recover. Of course she will. It's TV. Everyone gets retakes, rebrands, fresh segments. The game resets daily. But that's not the point. The real question is, can the audience unsee it? Can they clap like nothing cracked? Can they nod along as if the wizard's still magical? Because once you peek behind the curtain, it's hard to pretend the magic's real. Once the trick's exposed, it's just wires and smoke. So the next time Whoopi drops one of those eyebrow-raising monologues like it's gospel from the mountaintop, just remember, somewhere out there, a camera's rolling, a podcast is uploading, someone's quietly pulling the receipts. No drama, just data, just truth. And the internet? Oh, it'll be watching. Thumbs ready. Memes queued. Calculators out. This wasn't just a takedown. It was a digital wake-up call. It didn't scream, but it shook the room anyway. If you're tired of the noise and here for the receipts, go ahead, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.